In the diverse tapestry of America, some states stand out for their unique demographic compositions. In today's video, we'll spotlight the top 5 whitest states of America in 2024 with the highest percentage of white residents. We will look at the factors that contribute to these demographics and what they mean for the culture and communities in these states. Before we get started, a quick reminder: a large portion of our audience hasn't subscribed yet. If you find our content engaging and want to stay in the loop, hit that subscribe button. It's a great way to support us and never miss out on our latest updates. Now, let's jump into the video. Number 5. West Virginia. The Appalachian state of West Virginia is the 5th whitest at 91.2% Caucasian. It has a black minority population of 3.9%, Hispanics at 2.0%, Asians at 0.9% and others at 1.9%. West Virginia's demographics reflect its heritage as a former frontier settled in the 1700s and 1800s by Scots, Irish, English, and German immigrants who moved into the Appalachian region for agricultural and mining opportunities. Its rural character and lack of diversity continued for generations. The economy is still based around resource extraction industries like coal mining and timbering that have traditionally employed more white workers. Some growth has occurred in other sectors like manufacturing and tourism, but the racial demographics remain skewed heavily toward whites. There has been a small increase of Hispanic and Asian minorities from immigration in recent decades. But West Virginia is still one of the least racially diverse states due to its geographic isolation, rural nature and economic dependence on industries that employ more whites. Number 4. Vermont. The second New England state in the top 5 is Vermont at 92.1% white. It has very tiny minority populations of Hispanics at 2.2%, blacks at 1.6%, Asians at 2.2% and others at 1.9%. Vermont's striking lack of diversity is the product of its history of colonization by English settlers in the 1700s who created an agrarian economy and society that remained racially homogeneous for generations. Today, the state's demographics continue to be dominated by whites due to its rural geography, prevalence of agriculture and tourism industries, lack of large cities and population centers that attract more diversity, and location in racially homogeneous New England. There are signs of gradual change, with growth in minority percentages in areas like Burlington and immigration of Hispanics and others for agricultural work. But Vermont still ranks among the whitest states overall. Number 3. Wyoming. The large, rural state of Wyoming places third at 92.4% white. It has small minority groups of Hispanics at 10.6%, Native Americans at 3.0%, blacks at 1.5% and Asians at 1.0%. Wyoming's racial demographics were shaped by its frontier history as a territory settled largely by whites of European descent in the late 1800s. Agriculture, ranching, mining and the oil-gas industry formed the pillars of its economy, attracting a mainly white workforce. The state's vast open spaces, low population density, lack of urban centers and economic dependence on extractive industries have perpetuated its status as one of the whitest states for decades. While the Hispanic population has grown due to oil, gas and agricultural jobs, Wyoming remains overwhelmingly white. The number 2 spot goes to the western state of Montana at 94.1% white. Its minority residents consist of Hispanics at 4.2%, Native Americans at 7.0%, Asians at 0.8% and blacks at 0.7%. As a frontier state settled later than most by European immigrants in the late 1800s, Montana's racial demographics were shaped by its agricultural and mining economic pillars that drew a primarily white workforce. The harsh winters also made it less appealing for some minority groups. Today, Montana's lack of diversity persists due to its rural geography with few urban centers, prevalence of industries like agriculture, energy and tourism that employ more whites, and geographic remoteness and low population density. The Native American minority is concentrated on reservations. While the Hispanic population has grown in recent years, Montana remains the second whitest state overall behind only one other. Number 1. Utah. We've reached the number 1 spot, the whitest state in America according to 2024 data. And it's Utah, where a striking 96.8% of the population is white Caucasian. Let that number sink in for a moment. Over 96 out of every 100 Utah residents are white. It's an astounding level of racial homogeneity. So what makes Utah such an extreme outlier? The root cause lies in the state's unique history and deep ties to the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, widely known as the Mormon Church. When the Mormon pioneers trekked across the continent in 1847, they settled in what was then Mexican territory around the Great Salt Lake, founding Salt Lake City. Over the next decades, the area received an influx of Mormon immigrants who were nearly all of European ancestry, predominantly from Britain, Scandinavia and other parts of Northern Europe. Utah's demographics remained extremely racially homogeneous as the Mormon population grew rapidly through high birth rates. Even today, a majority of Utah's population can trace their ancestry back to those original 19th-century Mormon pioneer settlers. While some diversity has increased in recent decades, Utah's racial makeup is still overwhelmingly shaped by its legacy as a homeland for the historically insular Mormon culture and faith. At 96.8% white, it stands out on a completely different level from every other state. The closest minority group is Hispanics at just 9.7%. Asian, Black and other minorities account for mere slivers of the remaining 3.2% of the population that isn't white. It's hard to find a more racially homogeneous place in the U.S. outside of some small towns or counties. Of course, racial demographics are just one way to look at diversity. Utah has grown more economically and culturally diverse over time. The Mormon influence has waned to an extent, attracting some businesses and families from out of state. Yet the data clearly shows that when it comes to racial makeup, Utah remains in a class by itself as the whitest, least racially diverse state in the entire nation in 2024. Its history and cultural rootedness has created a demographic reality unlike anywhere else. Well, there you have it, folks, the 10 whitest or least racially diverse states in the United States according to 2024 data. Some of the rankings may have surprised you, while others were probably expected based on the historical settlement patterns and cultural demographics we discussed. While racial demographics alone don't tell the full story of a state or its people, this data does provide some insight into the unique histories, geographic factors, and settlement patterns that have shaped the racial and ethnic makeup of different parts of the country over time. I hope you found this look at the whitest states in modern-day America to be an interesting exploration of demographics and diversity. If you enjoyed learning about this topic, please give this video a thumbs up and share it with others who might be interested as well. And if you haven't already, make sure to subscribe to this channel and hit the notification bell so you don't miss out on future videos analyzing demographics, culture, history and other thought-provoking topics from around the United States and the world. Thanks for watching. Let me know your thoughts and reactions to these whitest states in the comments below. Until next time.